and gentlemen, this is the Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It's Monday, January 26, 2015. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher, Joe Hagmann, together. Well, in studio together. We are the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to us tonight. Thank you for your trust and belief in us. We are going to be talking about a number of issues tonight. It's just Joe and I tonight, so pull up a chair to our investigative conference room table. Folks, for the new listeners, we broadcast live every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on the Internet. Our home base is hagmannandhagmann.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There you can tune us in at the hagmannandhagmannreport.com. Again, thanks for your belief, your trust in us. Thanks for walking with us, next to us, beside us, behind us, in front of us at times. Thank you for uplifting us in your prayers and your word of mouth, everything that you do for us. We really appreciate this. We're going to be getting into a number of different issues tonight, but before we get into the program, I just want to remind everybody that portions of tonight's broadcast is sponsored by NatureBox. NatureBox ships the greatest tasting, wholesome snacks right to your door. You can forget about the vending machine, the snack aisles, and in the convenience stores, and drop the candy bar. You with a red shirt, drop the candy bar. That's right. Go to naturebox.com. You can snack much smarter with wholesome, delicious treats. We've got they've got dark cocoa almonds, they've got dried cherries, they've got pineapple rings. My goodness, you can support this broadcast by ordering a free NatureBox sampler box. Do so tonight. Go to naturebox.com/CFP radio. That's right. Free NatureBox snacks are found at naturebox.com/CFP radio. That said, Joe, welcome to the studio today. You were in a little bit early. I was not, and I suddenly appeared, and we haven't talked, so it's going to be an interesting program.
Yes, it is. Glad to be here at a relaxing weekend. This weekend, for the first time in a long time, I kind of just unplugged in a way.
Wow.
Didn't pay attention to my cell phone.
That's why you didn't answer your phone.
Left the computer in the kitchen has turned on.
Or respond to my emails.
Yeah, and it was nice.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
And I'm fresh and rejuvenated, ready to go, where it seems you were, must have been in a parallel universe.
I was. I was indeed. Yes.
You said you were a little bit off today.
Well, a little bit, but I'm fine. I mean, it's just things just get to you a little bit. But I had a terrific weekend. During the weekend, and I want to thank everybody who sent me emails, who had listened to J.B. Wells, I think it was Friday perhaps, or Rebecca Roth, an author of the book Methodical Illusion. Rebecca Roth, she is a former senior flight attendant with oodles of training, and she's also an airline purser. She wrote a book called Methodical Illusion, and it is an interesting book. Her interview with J.B. Wells, interesting interview. I did get the book, and I spent, about 4.5 hours during the night reading it. It's about, 300 pages maybe. I'm a quick reader, but it's a fictional account. You have to read it. The reason I mention this is because Rebecca Roth is going to be on our program on Thursday for the entire 3 hours. If you've never heard of her or heard of this book, Methodical Illusion, boy, I highly recommend it. I read this book. It's written in a novel form, and I'll tell you this: you might have somebody in your life that likes to read fiction, but isn't totally on board with 9/11 being not what it purports to be, or maybe they think it is. They think something's wrong there with 9/11. If you give this book to them, I got to tell you, it will do the job. It'll nudge them awake. That's Rebecca Roth. That's Rebekah, the first name Rebecca Roth, Roth. And the book is Methodical Illusion. I'm very excited to have her come on Thursday. In reading the book and taking notes, I was reminded of something that I had forgotten about. And you know what, folks? Maybe you forgot about it. Maybe you think, well, it's no big deal, or I don't know. This dredged up a couple of memories for me, and we don't talk much about this, but it really draws together, to me, the financial end of things. Again, this is a fiction book, sort of, kind of. You can see through the thinly veiled references, I would suspect. But having said all of that, she references things like the $240 billion in stolen currency and World Trade, WTC Building 7 and Building 4, and the gold heist in particular. The reason I'm mentioning this to you is we're going to be talking about this on Thursday. And I think it's important because what we're seeing today, in my view anyway, is really an extension of 9/11. When I say what we're seeing today, of course, I'm talking about the economic Armageddon that's soon to reach us, or it's in the offing. There was a lot of, my goodness, just so many things took place back prior to 9/11, even the 80s. And you can actually weave a golden thread of criminal conduct. My goodness, you could take it back to Watergate. You could take it back to the Kennedy assassination, because it's the same players, the same families, the same usual suspects. 9/11, and even today, that were in play, the same families anyway, or the same agencies, same departments of the agencies, same criminal cabal, whether it was 1963, November 22nd, or Watergate, or Oklahoma City, or, well, even through 9/11. And I do believe that some sacred cows are going to be exposed on Thursday. This is something that I've learned, and I guess I've learned rather sort of the hard way. I once told Joe when he first started training as an investigator, I said, look, we follow the truth wherever it might lead. If it leads to your grandmother, we follow it to your grandmother. If it leads to your, wherever, we just follow the truth. I don't care what the truth is. It's got to be the truth. We've got to identify the truth. And if it hurts, well, so be it. If it indicts sacred cows among us, you know what? You've got to have your big boy pants on and deal with it. Because not everyone in your family, perhaps, is squeaky clean. Right? Hey, things go bad. It doesn't mean that the entire family's bad, we'll say. That's the way 9/11 works, and that's the way the blowout from 9/11 works. One thing, folks, you can, in anticipation of Thursday, kind of an interesting but a subject that kind of ties everything together. Just do a search on Enron and Brady bonds, BRADY, Brady bonds, because it was on or about September 12th, 1991, when non-performing and unauthorized gold-backed debt instruments were used to purchase 10-year Brady bonds. These were a newly created instrument, or relatively newly created instrument. The bonds then were in turn illegally employed as collateral to borrow $240 billion, 120 in Japanese yen and 120 in Deutschmarks, in exchange for U.S. currency under false pretenses or counterfeit and unlawful conversion of collateral against which an unlimited amount of money could be created in derivative and debt instruments. Well, the illegal transactions are linked if you search this down, drilled down, linked to a murder of a U.S. Army colonel charged with overseeing about, well, some say 175 secret CIA bank accounts. That's the admiral or the Army colonel. His name is Durham, or was Durham. Durham, during interviews with various sources, had told or had stated that Bush 41 and Clinton administration officials visited him, or actually the wife of Durham said that Clinton and administration officials and Bush 41 officials had visited her husband several times in the months prior to and 3 days before his murder on August 29th, 1994. $240 billion in stolen currency was obtained, resulting from George H.W. Bush's presidential abuse of power, allegedly, when he authorized former Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady and former Secretary of State James Baker III to make fraudulent use of the Durham family trust collateral without her permission. This is really a deep, we're not going to get into this now, but this is the backdrop of the Brady bond scandal. The money, of course, is never recovered. The 10-year Brady bonds, they were purchased right before September 13th, 1991. Once again, using fraudulent collateral and gold bullion as security. Guess when they came due? September 12th, 2001, 24 hours after the 9/11 attacks. Guess who underwrote those bonds and who held the bonds? You guessed it, Cantor Fitzgerald. Direct hit on 9/11. So this is something that, the money end of this is something that we're going to get into. Also think, in preparation for Thursday, think women involved in the planning, plots, schemes of 9/11 and execution of 9/11. We're going to be talking about that too. It's going to be a really powerful 3 hours. Just really quickly here, and I'll toss it to Joe here, but also remember that leading up to 9/11, there were so many reports of unusual put options placed on American Airlines, United Airlines, prior to September 11th. And once again, you might think that this is old news. Well, it is old news. Without a doubt, it's old news. But sometimes you have to look backwards to see where you are and where you're headed, right? I believe that. Everyone's not on board with this. Some new listener, or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 100 might say, wait a minute, I never heard this before. And they'll tell 2 others and 4 others and 100 others, and pretty soon you've got a whole new group of people who are starting to ask questions. But remember, leading up to 9/11, there were reports of seriously unusual large put options placed on American Airlines and United Airlines. The puts basically have been ignored by the mainstream media. Some will say, oh, that's just a wives' tale. Nah. It was never fully investigated by 9/11, the 9/11 Commission. And even to this day, unidentified investors of these trades, which profited, they're unidentified. Millions of dollars in profits. Some left uncollected. The criminal foreknowledge and insider trading leads directly, to CIA's highest ranks. The criminal foreknowledge and insider trading lead, in fact, directly to the CIA's highest ranks. CIA Executive Director, remember him, Buzzy Krongard, managed the firm that handled the put options on United Airlines. The firm used to place put options on United Airlines stock was, until 1998, managed by the man who was placed in the number 3 executive director position at the CIA. Until 1997, A.B. Buzzy Krongard had been chairman of the investment bank A.B. Brown. Conger joined the CIA in 1998 as counsel to CIA Director George Tenet. He was promoted to CIA Executive Director by Bush on March 16, 2001. Now, the uncollected money does raise suspicions that the investors whose identities and nationalities have not been made public, and you know what, folks, you might not identify. You might think you might be wrong in thinking who these people are. Had advanced knowledge of airstrikes, or of the strikes, I should say. They don't dare show up now. This is back a number of years ago. The suspension of trading for 4 days after the attacks made it impossible to cash out quickly and to claim the prize before investigators started looking. Financial transactions in the days before the attack suggest certain individuals had foreknowledge and intended to reap huge profits. Some evidence of insider trading indicating foreknowledge includes huge surges in purchase of put options on stocks of the two airlines I just mentioned. Surges in the purchases of put options of reinsurance companies expected to pay out billions to cover losses from the attack. Now, it's interesting because there were many high-level executives covered by key man insurance, millions of dollars, that were working for large companies in the direct paths of the airlines. And you know where that money was paid to? Not the spouses or the families. No, the business owners, the corporations, through key man insurance. Merrill Lynch and Company, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America. Huge surge in purchases of call options of stock of a weapons manufacturer gained from the attack with Raytheon. How do you profit from a loss, right? So, again, these are things that we're going to be talking about on Thursday. I really hope everyone spreads the word, because this is going to be an interview that you will not want to miss. Rebecca Roth is very articulate, extremely knowledgeable, very well researched. Her book is fantastic. I'll put a link up, obviously, as we get closer. At some point here shortly, I'll put a link up to her website. It's Methodical Illusions. I was right the first time. methodicalillusion.com. methodicalillusion.com. But it's going to be a great show on Thursday. The other thing, too, the gold that was in below the building, one of the World Trade Center buildings. Just search for 200 or the 300 billion in gold bars. 9/11. The evidence that obviously gold was removed prior to the attack. We know this, right? But so we know this. Well, the reason we're bringing this up, or at least I'm bringing this up now, is because some of the very same people that are pushing the political power buttons today are the very same people who were operational then. We need to keep the pressure on. We need to understand the obfuscation, the way that we have been played, continue to be played. And I do believe that the symbolism that we'll see in the Super Bowl and the other symbolism that we've seen, excuse me, in the if you look at the Economist magazine cover, some of those people still have or would have been involved in the 9/11 attacks, plus create the security structure, the police state, the tyranny that we see today. It hasn't gone away. Everything is 9/11 really was the push to create the tyranny that we're seeing today. And we really need to keep the pressure on. We need to expose this. We need to work tirelessly to expose what's been taking place. We have no other choice. None. I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. And I know that people in the Northeast, from Maine to, my goodness, Maine to the Outer Banks, are just suffering from a huge snowstorm, Joe.
Yeah, why switch from what the mainstream media talk about? Let's jump on the bandwagon and talk about this tropical storm, Hurricane Juno, or what they're calling a snowpocalypse, or a new term I saw this weekend, bombogenesis. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I didn't see that. But you know what? It does. The storm does affect our listeners. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I'm worried about people up there, and because I mean a lot of people, and we have a lot of listeners in Boston. And
headlines on Drudge, 28 million in the storm zone, and they go in and talk about in this article, unless they've changed it from earlier, that there's up to 35 million from the Philadelphia to Boston corridor. There are travel bans in Massachusetts, Connecticut, in New York City,
right.
The cities of Boston, New York City, and other cities in the area. I'm hearing that there was a last check, this was about an hour ago, 7,100 flights were delayed or canceled. Schools were being closed around the area. A lot of grocery stores had pictures out there of shelfless inventory. They had no inventory as they were cleaned out for people trying to get last minute preps or whatever. This is being hyped. I say this is a Sandy 2.0, because there's a lot of oddities with this storm. It looks like Hurricane Sandy, the way it comes up on the East Coast, and it's kind of taking a left-hand turn. If you look at some of the NOAA models and wind maps, you can see the amount of how low the pressure is.
Right.
That's a big indicator too. And that's what that bombogenesis term is. It's if the barometer drops, 24 points in 24 hours, they consider that a bomb out, or I believe that's what they call it. But there's a lot of rare wind patterns ahead and behind the storms. Along with this travel ban, $300 in New York City, they're saying you could get a misdemeanor if you're out in the snow or out in the streets.
Wait a minute. You mean walking?
No,
or
driving.
Okay. But even so,
and this snow's not even supposed to really get here till tonight, tomorrow.
Wow.
So people all up and down the coast. I don't know what to expect. Is this weather wars or weather manipulation? Is there some of that in here? I would have to say yes. They're doing something. I mean, this is, like I said, Sandy. The one thing that gets me about this is it's not just a big low pressure storm. It's also has hurricane force winds, and with what they're saying, how much snow could fall. I couldn't imagine 50, 60 mile an hour winds for a couple of days while getting anywhere from 24 to 60 inches of snow dumped on you.
No, that's
but we'll hope
ridiculous.
The thing just takes a hook back out into the ocean where it belongs. I doubt it will, but I hope I'm completely wrong.
Well, isn't it interesting that we're seeing this now? And Dr. Judy Wood, remember her from Where Did the Towers Go book, mentioned that, remember her talking about Hurricane Erin. That's E-R-I-N. Hurricane Erin, the hurricane that you never heard of. Hurricane Erin.
Hurricane Erin.
Yeah. Think back to September 11th, 2001. Well, that day started out calm, pleasant temperatures, nice blue skies. Obviously, you remember that day. Very few people, in fact, know that a massive hurricane was located at that very moment just off the shore of Long Island. You can search this. You can search Hurricane Erin, 9/11/2001.
And what
on that day, it
was
10 days old.
This didn't make landfall?
No. Interestingly, it didn't.
And does it say in there what the storm ended up getting up to after it?
Well,
or did it die out before it hit land?
It was according to weather records. Hurricane Aaron was birthed on September 1st, 2001. It was the fifth Atlantic storm of the 01 season to be given the name, and the first to reach hurricane strength, and it merged with another storm on 9/17/01. Aaron was also the longest-lived Atlantic storm of that particular season. If you go back to, if you go back before the merger of the two hurricanes, if you go back to September 7th, 2001, Aaron began a 4-day march on a path taking her directly toward New York City. But by September 10th, it had become a Category 3, to answer your question, on September 10th, with wind speeds of 120 miles an hour, just as it passed Bermuda. But the fact is, we heard nothing about the storm.
After 9/11,
but it never hit land. Interestingly, it took this right turn away from New York. We do know things like that happen. We do know storms. We do know that storms make weird changes and turns and twists and flips and flops, and we understand that. However, not quite like this. It's Hurricane Aaron, E-R-I-N. In fact, I think Dr. Wood had devoted, nearly an entire chapter to that, but pretty powerful. The reason I bring this up, because you mentioned this, weather modification.
Yeah.
Weather
modification.
Yeah. I don't know.
Terraforming the universe or atmosphere, some call it. A lot of it is linked to the chemtrails, and science is even backed up. I think the movie was called What in the World Are They Spraying?
Right.
One of the first documentaries I watched on chemtrails. And the heavy metals that are the amount of toxins or chemicals in these things, and they're linked to heavy metals and what heavy metals do to the body and to the soil and the environment is amazing to me. Who thinks of this stuff?
Really?
Who thinks to put little nanoparticles of metal and spray it around aerosolize it and spray it around?
Well,
to think that
definitely
and they leave themselves out.
Satanic in nature.
Global warming. We have to take care of our planet. We have to repel the hot sun and all the ice that's melting.
Right.
What they did under the guise of saving us from burning ourselves up. Pretty much is the rhetoric that the scientists or people who back this man-made global warming. Interestingly enough, in this magazine I saw here, they're talking about this and showing photos of the ice in Antarctica and how it's gained back from, I think, 2002. It's the ice that was lost, or they were.
And it's come back with a vengeance, right?
August 2012, yeah. Arctic ice supposedly diminished due to global warming, and they have a picture from August 2013 where all the ice that they say that was melted is replenished. But how much of this, and this is something I don't think we'll ever figure out on this side of this journey, but how much of what we see of these, crazy storms, they didn't start naming winter storms for nothing, but how much of this is man-made versus how much of this is manipulation of elements around us outside versus how much of it's natural or in the times we live in?
No, that's a good question.
The storm's name is Juno. We read through the winter storms in the fall when they released the names, and if I remember correctly, all the names seem to be omens or symbolic in name as well as.
But the one thing I think in my research here over the last number of days is that the real evil, it's the unspeakable evil in the hearts of many of these Satanists, these bonesmen, these illuminists, whatever you want to call them, all the parts and cogs to the wheel of satanic activity. It's truly evil. Hollywood, the music industry, are spreading it. I mean, the entertainment industry is spreading it. News is spreading it. By the way, 2015 Super Bowl halftime show. Let's remind everyone, Katy Perry will be performing, and this will be, as Nathan Leal has said, and we've talked on and off air about this. This is going to be a ritual. And you know, Americans, we, the people, have we become so desensitized to visualizations that we cannot understand what we're seeing in front of us? I think we have. Normal entertainment today, immoral 20 years ago, 40 years ago. Look at the television shows. But one has to wonder why Katy Perry was selected. Is it because the NFL just has this weird propensity for these cult-like rituals for their entertainment, or is there something more here? Well, everyone's thinking about deflated balls and making more of a noise about deflated balls than a illegal usurper in the White House and illegal alien, or the evil nature of the performances at a Super Bowl halftime. I mean, I've got to tell you, the overall ignorance of spiritual issues in this country is not just problematic, but it's front and center of everything we're seeing take place.
Absolutely. You got dysfunction inside. The religion of, you got dysfunction with amongst believers, let alone, I mean, of Christian believers, let alone all the other different religions and theories and places people gather to, you know, spread their ideas of this, what they think is to be the truth, rather than the way it has been, and not that the mainline Christian belief has always been, or religious systems inside those beliefs have always been good, but there was a way of life really surrounding, you know, from the Dark Ages into what they call the period of enlightenment. And not to get off track here, but there's a...
Well, wait, before you go there, hang on just a second, because Katy Perry, I just want to remind people, because I got an email here saying Katy Perry's old news. Well, wait a minute. If you go back to the 2014 Grammy Awards, it appeared her performance there was much more than just ratings, headlines, and entertainment. Her performance of her song, Dark Horse, remember that? That appeared to be really a black magic witchcraft ritual. It began with this sinister voice. She cast spells from crystal balls, invoking spirits. She put me in a trance. And then Perry sang while four horned demon-like figures appeared wearing black witch's clothing, emblazoned with a glowing red Knights Templar cross on her chest. She emerged from the crystal ball while demons danced frantically around her. Is this what we're going to see in the Super Bowl halftime? I think so, because it's witchcraft. And Perry's music, her videos, you're all part of a spell. You really are. A beast with Moloch. I mean, Moloch, horns, dark robe dancers, all of this. Circle of fire around her at the end. My goodness. And if you think that I'm exaggerating this, just go back over the news headlines. You'll see somebody from E! Online, I think, Entertainment Online or Entertainment Tonight, one of those places, sent a tweet that we just witnessed actual witchcraft during Katy Perry's Grammys performance. Well, this is what I think we are going to see. And don't forget, years ago, that Perry admitted that she sold her soul to the devil.
Right, which I think is one of the most important
areas
of focus for people to pay attention to, because not that it's uncommon for entertainers to, let alone even admit that today, but to come out and say and admit it, and then be given all these different, almost we call them rewards for what she's admitted to and the way she's done it. With her background coming from a church-going family herself, I believe her dad was some kind of pastor or something.
Right.
To see the change versus, and on top of that, the change from her career plus to, the darkness of her persona and message and all this other, the music videos. And this just from what I've seen, the transhumanist, the alien agenda. I think she did that song about, where we watched that video not too long ago, where it was just very symbolic of aliens. And I mean, the darkness of these people is what gets them their rewards, such as a Super Bowl halftime show.
Well, Perry's also promoting and has promoted same-sex lesbianism. Mm-hmm. I Kissed a Girl, one of her songs. Folks, if your child or your teen or your grandchild is listening to Katy Perry, I don't care if they're 29 or 9 or 2, you gotta do something, because look, this we saw Katy Perry. Well, the Grammys themselves were used to heavily propagate gay marriage, make it normal. You had Madonna, Mary Lambert, oh my goodness, other people performing the gay anthem. Same Love, Queen Latifah wed 33 couples, a number I assure you being tossed out there. 33 couples, a number I'm sure of significance. And Queen Latifah was recently deputized by Los Angeles County to legally conduct wedding ceremonies. Oh, joy. And, people call us intolerant. I believe we need to be intolerant. We need to be intolerant of immorality, the redefining of marriage, of the Antichrist lyrics, the Antichrist, the satanic nature. Come on, how far?
You see how much
the swirl is. Go ahead.
Secular content and more worldly ways that seduce people into. You get too caught up in the world, and you can lose your belief system. You get too caught up in, researching. If you're not grounded and don't have that foundation that we talk about, you can be swayed easily into different belief sets. And this is why it's important. People need to understand that most things, the way we understand them, are probably wrong. But there are some things that we do know to be 100% true. And we need those things that the Lord told us that we know are 100% true as our foundation of all beliefs, because as the foundation begins to change, so too will it change the paradigm of believers. And it can be dangerous in the times we live in, because it could change believers into non-believers. We live in a material world, really, in a physical world.
We do. Yes, we do.
All the matter in our world can be manipulated.
Well, the Satan, the devil, is at work here, and God Himself obviously has warned us, those of us who call evil good and good evil, that He will have the final say in this. You can just look up Isaiah 5, verse 20. Apparently, Katy Perry's performance will be witchy. This, according to sources. Which witch is which?
I actually watched when I woke up this morning. I'm
glad.
Doing laundry.
Good. If you didn't, then we'd have a problem.
I saw I had on the History Channel, because last night I wanted to catch some of that Sons of Liberty series. I don't know if you saw the previews for that.
I never even heard of it.
My wife told me about it. It's a 2-hour on Sunday night for 3 weeks, and it's about the beginning of the American Revolution, how the British settlers here were beginning to see the taxes and being manipulated into paying higher duties, and how the unrest started and how that led to the Revolutionary War. And obviously it's based on fact from what I took some notes too, just to do some fact checking on some of this, but it had anyway, I saw this advertisement for a show today, and I was watching the show, and it got into one of the headlines I saw also was when ancients act badly, an advertisement for this show.
When ancients act badly.
And they were doing this on Cleopatra, I think. This was a commercial. It's from my notes. When this terminology, when did we've seen a lot of this in the media, but that word ancients. Ancient alien theory, ancient, they're beginning to talk about a lot of this old mythology. They're not. We always talk about how the news and the media always talk about the problems, but never lead people to the solution or give people answers, such as leading them to the Bible or reading or even a lot of the news anchors that claim that they were brought up in Christian homes, this and that. Well, you never hear them profess their faith, and we see it in all sectors of our society. Biblical belief systems and doctrine are being pushed out of schools, or being pushed out of the military, government, out of the public sphere. And that's not bad. Are they doing this for against Muslims? Are they doing this against? No, all this other stuff is flourishing. The witchcraft, the Salem is what I watched today. A story about the
Salem.
I was folding this whole thing of clothes. Right, I did some laundry and dumped all these clothes out, and I'm sitting there folding them, and I'm turning on the TV. This is when I woke up this morning. And the Salem witchcraft, 1692 story came out. And again, I had to get my notebook out, so I'm doing laundry, taking notes, and listening to this show. Well, it talked about how the progression of this thing, how it started and how it progressed and how it got out of control, they say. But what caught me is there was a few references to this. Who do you remember? Are you familiar with the Salem story?
I wasn't there. But
there was two ladies or girls who lived with their father, who was You weren't there?
No.
You're only what? 400.
Okay.
But they talk about how these two girls started this whole thing from pretty much there's a disease going around, or a virus. Maybe people in the chat can help me out with this today, where girls were getting paralyzed and getting Tourette's syndrome almost from a virus in New York last year. Do you remember that?
Some people accuse me of having Tourette's. I do, but no, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't make fun of that. Really? The virus would cause this?
No. What I see, what they're calling a virus today or last year, and into the flu season this year when the Ebola stuff was going on, there was a lot of people, and also the CDC talked about this mysterious virus, affecting high school children, and it would send them into a state of paralysis, and they would have uncontrollable convulsions and these different side effects. Well, it reminded me a lot of what the virus we saw recently they were talking about, this mysterious virus, were symptoms of what these people were suffering in the past in the Salem. Right.
Okay.
It sounded very similar to me. Maybe I'm making connections here I shouldn't, but it is
it's something that I think maybe bears investigation.
Well, it shook the whole village back in 1692, obviously. The pastor's family was scared, and they started having the trials and hanging people. But it was interesting to see how the Puritans,
as they call Washington.
These were Puritans. They were Bible-believing people who rejected the Catholicism label, I guess is what a Puritan is. I learned that today. But
the Puritans and Pilgrims and...
This is who were, these people were a town of Puritans, as they say. And so these two girls started having these weird possessions, or whatever you want to call it. And the town was completely shook up, and all this paranormal stuff started happening. And with the first person to be accused of being part of this witchcraft was a slave or a servant of the family. And her story was, and this is the first time I've heard this, that she was approached by a spirit with a dog head and a human body, which she said was Satan, and that he told her to do this, and she did it, this casting of spells or whatever.
Huh.
But it was what struck me was how a whole town could be turned around with just a little bit of paranormal activity, and the lack of understanding where that activity and how to get rid of it comes from. Basically, what I was thinking is these people were Puritans. They had their Bibles. They knew how to cast out demons if they read their Bibles, which they did say that in the historical, facts or records as they were going through, that people who attended church, not only did they read their Bibles to their family on a nightly basis, this was like a common practice or a routine they had set up there, but they would have to attend 2 meetings a week at their church for Bible studies. So it wasn't that these people didn't understand what was written in the Bible. They had this increase of paranormal activity, which was demonic in nature, but they couldn't get rid of it, resorting to physical means, trying to get rid of it by hanging the witches, etc.
Right. Okay. Which,
with the whole point of
in the context, it makes sense. Okay.
So you have a group of Puritans here in the country,
right,
who know their religion, know their Bible,
right,
from what all historical records show. Well, just a little bit of a change in activity, which they pinpointed as demonic, and to see the solutions, the man-made solutions that they had to this activity, spoke volumes to me because of the disconnect of what the Bible says versus what these people were doing.
Huh.
So, kind of like how you would see it, a microcosm version of what I'm sure people went through in with Jesus in Jerusalem, how the Sadducees and the Pharisees, all the lawyers and pastors who knew these verses and scriptures and knew the coming of the Messiah was that had been preached about, yet couldn't see it when they were living in it. Didn't know what to do when it was happening, and still didn't see it afterwards. I guess it just spoke to me to how people resort to their own human nature and their own answers rather than looking to the Lord for the solutions that were, to the problems were given.
Yeah, and I think too, in addition to the
answers in the Bible, people should have known from the Puritans down to it's just the same as you talked about history repeating itself. You see this over and over and over.
Well, that brings me to a little thing. I mean, you don't want to, we could be. Well, we had started off the show talking about 9/11, 2001, the attacks on 9/11. And I could tell you this, I don't know with any degree of certainty exactly what happened. I'm not sure too many people do. I do know this, it didn't happen the way the narrative said it happened. And again, the same players are with us today. And in fact, I believe they're holding our hands as we near the precipice of economic collapse, and this is perhaps the next great calamity we'll face. But the people, like you're talking about, people don't look to the Bible for answers. But there's another problem here too. People are so it's interesting because, well, a couple of things. This weekend I was talking to somebody, and I happened to mention having a guest about 9/11 on, and she said to me, and this is not a relative, it's just an acquaintance she said, well, why would you even do that? And I said, what do you mean? Why would you have somebody talk about 9/11, 2001, the attacks of 9/11? And I said, well, I don't, why not? And she said, well, it's too long ago. That's so long ago. What does it matter today? And I thought to myself, wow,
seeing as I would change
yeah, I mean, I can understand from a historical viewpoint, but think about what happened on 9/11 with aircraft and the communications. Now, folks, did you know? Have you heard? Did you hear about those aircraft this weekend? The Twitter threats or the tweets that were made threats against airlines this weekend? Did you hear about that?
I didn't.
No. Yeah, some flights, I think about 4, were escorted by fighters to the ground because of credible bomb threats on, well, one of the big networking sites, Twitter. Apparently somebody had made bomb threats against up to, or perhaps more. The number is actually a little bit cloudy. It depends on who you ask, and it depends on who you want to believe. We'll just say 4 airlines were forced down to land and put on the opposite end of the tarmac because of credible bomb threats through social media. Now, here's my question. Obviously, before the question, just let me state that the authorities, the FBI, the spy agencies say we don't really know where these threats came from, who made these threats, but we know they're credible. Are you telling me, with a budget of umpteen gazillion dollars and eyes everywhere, that you don't have a clue? Somebody's lying here, and lying for a reason, and that reason is to continue, I believe, in my estimation, to continue to convince people that they need more and more and more power. You know, speaking about the economy too, and I'm kind of shotgunning this whole thing, but think about the economy for a moment. Think about how quickly somebody could reach in your bank account and change. Let's say you're getting too close to the truth, or you hit the truth, and let's say you got, I don't know, $1,500 in your bank account. I can hear people laughing, saying, "Is that what you got?" Yeah, if that, you know. But imagine if you all of a sudden had nothing because somebody reached in and just changed everything to zeros or even a negative balance. Well, people can do that, and people can go in and change a lot of things, anything that uses a computer. What about a NORAD screen? What about an FA or a flight air traffic controller's radar screen? What about social networking? What about your bank account? And again, this goes back to the 90s and INSLAW and Promise software. If you've never heard about PROMIS, I would urge again everyone take a look at Promise software. Backdoors in computer software. Backdoors. I'm going to tell you right now, we have given the specific software and used specific software with backdoors to other countries, nation-state countries, and to other intelligence agencies. It's very sensitive. You know, so anyway, the reason I brought that up is I believe that backdoors like that and software like that that's been in play for a number of years, that could very well have maybe changed something on a air traffic controller's radar screen, or even NORAD, or anything could very well. It could very well be the same or new and improved method of emptying your bank account or playing some huge games with the systems of today. Now, and no, I just didn't learn about this. I mean, again, you have to look backwards to kind of understand where you're at and see what's going on. It's interesting. I thought of things like backdoors to things like Twitter and to social networking sites, and to learn that 4 planes, bomb threats, supposedly credible, forced down by F-16s fighters in the United States. We're being conditioned, folks. We're being conditioned. We're being handled. We're being massaged. We're being manipulated. Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry. Had to go off on that tangent.
No, we are. And it's, I don't know if we talked about how much we got into the Argentina prosecutor last week, but this is an important story, and some interesting new developments have come out.
Oh, the suicide of the
prosecutor shot point blank in forehead. Now has come out. And from Associated Free Press, Buenos Aires, an Argentina prosecutor found dead shortly before he was about to make an explosive allegation about President Cristina Kirchner took a bullet point blank to his forehead, just as officials has said Saturday. Authorities said Diego Lagos Marizino.
I was going to say, we're not going to pronounce that name, right?
Marizino, a computer expert and colleagues who said that he had brought prosecutor Niesman a handgun Saturday night at his request, had been barred from leaving Argentina. Niesman was found dead with a bullet to his head in Buenos Aires home on Sunday, just before he was set to go before a congressional hearing to accuse President Cristina and the foreign minister of shielding Iranian officials implicated in the 1994 bombing of a Jewish community center that killed 85 people. It was Argentina's worst terrorist attack in modern history. It has never gone to trial fully. Several pre-trials were canceled amid serious irregularities involving judges, the Argentinian intellectual staff, and the Argentinian intelligence staff. Investigators who initially said Niesman appeared to have committed suicide have not ruled out homicide or induced suicide. But as I said, they have concluded that he was shot point blank at the forehead, and he did not have gunpowder on his hands.
You know, I've seen quite a few suicides, even some very elaborate rigging of shotguns where in fact, I saw this where somebody actually hooked up a shotgun to a door using twine and tied to a chair, and it's just incredible stuff, but never in the forehead by a handgun. And how convenient is that to testify? Yeah. Keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on Argentina.
Yeah, this is all about the president apparently shielding this group of Iranian suspects in the 1994 bombing in order to trade grain for oil or swap grain for oil with Tehran in exchange for withholding or withdrawing red notices to Interpol seeking the arrest of former and current Iranian officials in the unsolved case. So the Argentinian president is caught in a cover-up here that led to a murder.
Well, we do have to keep an eye on what's going on down there.
What's interesting about this is we're watching it unfold. We'll actually be able to see, and I know people aren't going to let this go. They're holding the authorities' feet to the fire as much as they can, I would imagine, from the revelations we've seen, from where they were last week to where they are this week.
Right.
There's obviously people that are keeping the gas pedal on for making sure that this thing gets resolved properly. And we'll see where it goes. This could be one of the, back doors that we see that could fold down a whole government of a country from a political scandal, from a cover-up. Something like we see with our 9/11. It's an open door to a cover-up in one sense or another. I mean, that's a fact. From the Bush family flying bin Ladens out to their partnerships and oil dealings, etc. There was obviously, a lot more between those two families going on than it was ever revealed to us. That alone is a cover-up, in my opinion. Not disclosing that directly after this happened.
Oh, yes, yeah.
So, we'll where this go. It'll be interesting to see. So keep your eyes open on that. Cause
absolutely.
It's important.
One thing, too, folks, the death of the dollar, of the U.S. dollar. I spoke of this a number of years ago and wrote about this. The dollar is being intentionally killed off and discarded unceremoniously by countries all around the globe. It's amazing in that context, given the alleged strength of the dollar index. Why would countries be doing that? Okay. Don't forget that the commonly referenced measurement of the dollar is the U.S. dollar index, which measured against the euro, yen, pound, Canadian dollar, Swiss franc, the krona. These are all dying currencies. These are all fiat currencies, and they're dying. And it's no secret that Russia is openly working to rid itself of the dollar using its trade activities. In China, well, they're methodically eliminating the dollar as well. So it's just a matter of time. And we know that the central bank of Iran, Iran are stopping the use of the dollar in international settlements. We know this. It is rather interesting to take a look at what is happening, that the dollar is being, once again, unceremoniously discarded around, by other countries. Given its so-called strength here, everyone's saying, whoa, look at the dollar, it's so strong. It's so strong. Compared to what? Compared to other dying fiat currencies. So folks, when this happens, and it's going to happen, please understand, it is not going to be nice. It's not going to be fun. This is not fear porn, doom porn, or anything like that. This is actually, this is going to hit hard. People will starve. People will die. There will be riots. We have to prepare for those times. And it might not seem like that way now, right? I mean, it's good. Everything's good right now.
Yeah, well, we can get into this on the other side of the break.
Oh, my goodness.
You got to tie what's happening in New York and Boston.
Into,
we see the stores are empty in a lot of places out there as people prepare for a couple days possibly without access to a store.
Dry run,
once again, the store shelves are empty. What does this say? Well, that says that people have, the way we'd want to see it is if we had some kind of disaster like that, nobody would have to go to the stores because they'd have it prepared at home.
That would be nice.
But
stockpile now before the hoarding hits.
And not that there's anything wrong with having to go to the store last minute, because there's always something you're out of, I'm sure. If you're like me, there's always one thing you need. But it's rough to see everybody having to go out all at once, standing in all these long lines, and that tension starts to rise high in the stores, and snowballs from there. But
no pun intended.
No pun was intended. And we're gonna get into more of that on the other side. We'll take our break now, folks. You're listening to the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this Monday, 26th of January, 2015. This week we have Stan tomorrow with us, as always on Tuesdays. On Wednesday, Greg Jackson will be joining us for the show. And on Thursday, again, Rebecca Roth, author of I got a methodical illusion. I'm reading my own writing as I do that, too.
I was watching you struggle with that.
We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. Hour number 2 of this Monday edition of Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to open up the phone lines this hour and take phone calls towards the second half of this hour.
Line up. 661-244-9839. 661-244-9839.
We can get into anything you guys want to talk about, and we do have some news we're going to get into. I guess I'll just start here. I saw this genetically modified mosquitoes to be released in the Florida Keys.
What could possibly go wrong?
A British company named Oxidec is planning to release genetically modified mosquitoes into the environment of the Florida Keys. The company wants to use Florida Keys as a testing ground for these mutant bugs. Goes on to talk about a loophole in the FDA's ordinances that could, for a patent, this company is getting a patent for an animal bug. It goes on, this article states that this could mean mutant mosquitoes could be released at any point against the wishes of the locals or scientific community. Nearly all experiments with genetically modified crops have eventually resulted in unintended consequences. Superweeds, more resistant herbicides, mutant and resistant insects, also collateral damage to ecosystems. And it goes on to talk about how these bugs will be released and how this plans to work. And what they're going to do is they expect these to mate with other mosquitoes and reduce their lifespan. But what could they possibly do to the ecosystem by releasing these mosquitoes is a nightmare I don't want to live in.
But see, does the report get into exactly what genetic modifications were made? I mean, does it give the particulars?
Well, this goes back to a couple of years. Apparently, they've been trying to tweak and perfect their. And I'll do a quick search here because I thought there was a few different publications which obviously had different viewpoints, and we have a viewpoint from the FDA and government versus a viewpoint from organic farmers and people who don't want genetically modified vegetables or insects. But this from Fox News, this is from today. FDA could set millions of genetically modified mosquitoes loose in Florida, and it says this is essentially using a mosquito as a drug to cure a disease, one politician said. And they go on to say that even potential boosters say those responsible must do more to show that the benefits outweigh the risks. Apparently, their scientific numbers and research is not conclusive to this point to understand what's going to happen.
Okay.
But what the plan is here, as mosquito controllers say, they're running out of options that can kill this Aedes aegypti tiger-strained invader, who they're targeting, this mosquito,
right.
Located more towards, it says, the southernmost city in the U.S. is Key West, and this is in the area in south is where these mosquitoes are. But an arriving person would be infectious for several days with this disease and could infect many of the local mosquitoes. Within a few weeks, you'd end up with several infected mosquitoes for each potential infected visitor.
So
there are no vaccines or cures for what they call as breakbone fever, apparently.
Wait, but wait a second. What was the intent? I suppose
these mosquitoes to mate with other mosquitoes.
To do what? To make them stop carrying this virus or this disease or this whatever, this gunk, this thing?
If I remember correctly, I'm trying to find it again, but what I read, I think they were going to mate with their other mosquitoes and die.
Oh.
If I read this correctly.
Okay.
And this is not the article.
Again, what could possibly go wrong?
But they say what Oxitec is trying to spin is highly improbable that there is a negative consequence of foreign DNA entering someone that is bitten by one of these mosquitoes. They say that they have now released 70 million of these mosquitoes in several countries and received no reports of human impacts caused by the synthetic DNA placed in these.
Oh. Okay, well, Mark L., I just want to throw this out there real quick here. Mark L. writes, the subject line, genetically modified mosquitoes. And folks, you can send us questions or comments at, go to hagmanhagmann.com. And
where can I send questions?
God. No, hey, I've got so many questions. I'm looking for people. Anyway, Mark L. says this: the genetically modified mosquito sounds a lot like the genetically modified creatures from the Dead Sea Souls. I'm not familiar with that. What is that, a movie? No? Dead Sea Souls. Book?
Thomas.
Oh. What? Okay, never mind. Wow. Senior moment here, I think.
No, I've done that before. That's an odd title.
Oh, man.
But they say that this experiment is self-limiting. It uses insects engineered to kill their progeny, not to make them stronger. It's is constrained since I gotta learn how to say his name. Oxitec mosquitoes won't breed with other species. They said this killing of this disease will help and protect human health while eliminating an invasive species.
Well,
but
here's something.
At the same time, they say there's no, we haven't seen any controversies or any issues with humans or human health. Where are these viruses coming from? Where is the...
Well, wait, you haven't seen anything yet. Maria Canese, the author of Prepare for Persecution, just wanted to let us know that the mosquitoes are crossbred with the herpes simplex virus and E. coli bacteria, in addition perhaps to being genetically modified, or maybe genetically modified to have that as a staple in their,
Yeah, and I mean...
And their... I just don't want to go there.
Yeah, this seems very... And it's interesting, we were talking earlier about the essential oils and the medical doctors and, the homeopathic versus traditional medicine and how the doctors, don't want anything to interfere with the traditional way of treating based on, years of scientific research and medical research they do to back up their statements. Well, a lot of times we see, have you seen, ads or radio, on TV or radio, of all these drugs, has your family member suffered a death or a heart failure from taking this drug or that drug? Well, join in the class action lawsuit. I hear that a lot.
Sure.
And those are based on non-approved FDA or sometimes approved FDA substances, which have horrible side effects for the people who use them, either intentionally or unintentionally, asbestos being an unintentional one.
Right.
Well, what about these scientific studies that aren't complete yet? that are still allowed to continue when we don't know the outcomes or the harm that they do, or that information isn't released or explained to us, or the government. We see that. What's the number one cause of death in this country? What's the top 5 causes of death in this country? Heart failure?
No. Drinking big gulps in New York City would be number 1.
No, of death, cause of death.
Yeah, no, that
I mean, there are sicknesses.
It has to be.
Between cancer, between the health of the population here in the United States, something is changing. I mean, you look 100 years ago, what was the top 5 causes of the death versus now? I'm sure there'll be diseases and different things, but you're not supposed to see substitutes. When the scientific community and the medical community move further in their research and find cures and remedies to treat and help people with these issues, you shouldn't. I guess with the rise of population, you'll see a rise of deaths, but it changes from one bad medical reason to another. It's not like they fix one area and they make the other area 10 times worse. It almost seems like in a lot of cases.
Well, look, Big Pharma, they've got it out for us. They're really,
absolutely.
Folks. Don't you think that
how much money was spent on pharmaceuticals 100 years ago, and how much money spent on pharmaceuticals today?
Well,
I mean, it's a percentage of government income from the testing to the
yes.
It's tied together with that government sector because they need the approval, they need the patents, etc. There's not the.
And I've got so many I've got so many complaints with respect to Big Pharma, the medical industry. I was talking extensively to perhaps one of the most intelligent men about health in the world, Dr. Theodore Broer, Ted Broer. You know him, healthmasters.com. You've got folks. If you haven't ordered his book, Breakthrough Health, you've got to get it. Okay, really, because there is so much in that book that will help you to become become healthier. I'll just say it that way. I guess I don't know what I can say anything I doggone well please, right? I didn't write the book. But I'll tell you this, the information in that book is, if you act on it, will help you immensely. Now, I had mentioned last week about talking to a doctor, and somebody, in fact, I'm going to answer this email. Somebody asked me, well, what medicine were you talking about? What medication were you talking about that causes the side effect is pancreatic cancer? It's, to my knowledge, I believe it's metformin, based on all the research I did, and I'm couching that with I believe that some of the literature, and it depends because it goes under different names, but I did see that a possible side effect is pancreatic cancer. And I was talking to Ted Broer today, and he said, well, it seems to be. So the cure or the patchwork for pharmaceutical applications of drugs that you and I take, and I mean you and I take, you know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you listening right there by your computer or on your phone. They've got some nasty side effects. And the more I look into homeopathic, neuropathic, homeopathic, whatever you want to call them, remedies, the more I'm convinced that we need these now more than ever. We really do. Really, I believe the gates of hell, as Paul McGuire said, the gates of hell are about ready to swing open, and we better be, not just spiritually, but that's important, not just practically, but that's very important, but physically, health-wise, prepared for this. And I know some people are. Look, I understand. If you're out there and if you're infirmed or impaired, I understand that. But or if you don't have, I don't know, the extra $20 or $40 or whatever it costs for supplements, I understand that too. If there was a way that we could help you, I don't know, I would. But this is just ridiculous. And when I was talking to Ted, he said, the globalists, chemtrails, and again, people listening to this for the first time. And I'm not talking about veteran listeners or people who have been awake forever or longer than I have, but chemtrails was a real big sticking point with me. I used to just punch Joe in the arm, really, when we were driving to New York City and back, and he'd point and say, look at the chemtrail up there. I'm thinking, come on, you watch. It's a nice sunny day or nice day, and pretty soon it's all going to be cloudy. And sure enough, it was. It happened, and it still does, right? I mean, remember I used to tease you about this.
We used to argue about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have nothing to do for 7-8 hours of car ride, so.
And then, let me tell you something, okay? You get up at 4 in the morning, you drive to New York City, it's a 7-hour ride from where we're at, then just to go to work. Then you work for 12 hours, crouched over in a van, when it's 100 degrees outside or 20 below. In the worst part of the 5 boroughs, drinking stale coffee, eating cold pizza or convenience store hot dogs or whatever. Yeah, that's bad. And you get a little bit gamey, and then your attitude gets a little bit bad. So,
And if it wasn't you with a bad attitude, it was me. And
sometimes when it was both of us, it was we'd brawl onto the street sometimes, and I'd be kicking my son, not kicking him, but whooping on my son. And heck, I'm convinced in parts of Brooklyn you could probably kill somebody in the middle of the street. Bystanders just walk by and not say a word.
That's from what the fighting and the arguing we saw, people ignoring.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I mean, but back to the point. Ted Broer said, the elites, the power elites, they don't eat the same thing. Do you think that they eat the same way we do? Of course not. They're not going to eat their own poison or cattle goyim to them. Did
you see the headline that elite bankers are preparing for unrest, buying little bunkers here and there and farms in different parts of the globe? I saw that headline today. I think it was on Drudge. Where they're talking about the possibility of unrest sparked by what they saw in Ferguson, have the elite, buying bunkers.
Well, that whole, and folks, if you did not catch this, the protests in Ferguson were organized and funded by, that's right, the globalist of globalists, George Soros, among others, but it's through his different NGOs, or not NGOs, but his different initiatives. They were funded. The professional protesters, agitators, were shipped to Ferguson and other places across the nation. Compliments of George Soros. Now, you tell me, I want to get George Soros on the phone. I really do. What's his phone number? You got his phone number? Let's call him. Because I got some questions for him. You know what? Not even questions. I've got some accusations. What kind of a despicable... Nah, I'm going to stop. Okay. One more thing here while I'm on my soapbox. Rosie O'Donnell, and I happened on this quote today, and I thought, I wonder how many people know this or remember this. It's always good to keep things in fresh, okay? September 12th, 2006, ABC's The View. My wife, man, ladies, View comes on. My wife, and she's a very loving, very kind. I mean, she's slow to anger. I mean, oh my goodness, she blows a gasket as soon as she could be in 2 rooms away and hear The View, and she's, I got to kill. I mean, I don't watch it, but if the television's on, she'll kill the television. But anyway, here's what Rosie O'Donnell said on September 12th, 2006, The View. Listen carefully. Radical Christianity is just as threatening as radical Islam in a country like America, where we have separation of church and state. There's so much wrong with that sentence. I don't even know where to begin. But I wanted to just to bring that to you, because it is through people like Rosie O'Donnell, programming like The View, and emphasis on programming, that we will lose the ability to talk like we're talking today. Promise you. Don't forget what Lyndon Baines Johnson did back in the, what was it, the 50s, the Johnson Amendment.
60s?
No, it was back in the 50s when he was running for Senate. He was opposed by Hunt and Hunt and his group. Ultimately, what Johnson did was engineered this legislation to insert language into the IRS code that prohibited nonprofit organizations, including churches, from endorsing or opposing candidates for political office. This is where we get the 501c3 today. And I know I've mentioned this before, but it's always good to drive this home, because people say, well, there's, 501c3 you can't endorse. Well, where did this start? Was it a lark? No. This was this was done by Johnson so he could win his Senate, a hotly contested Senate race. It's now codified as part of 26 U.S.C. Section 501c3, obviously, and it states that a tax-exempt organization may not participate in or intervene in, and this does include the publishing or distributing of statements, any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for public office. Now, this does go further, and courts will take this further, even though back then they should have seen this as a very clear infringement on the First Amendment. But this happened in 1954. But this is haunting the churches of today. This is haunting any 501c3 corporation. Somebody asked me if we were a 501c3, and I said no, absolutely not, for obvious reasons. Because, in fact, somebody was going to send and I'm serious about this. Somebody said, look, I'm going to send you $10, but I need to know if I can deduct this from my taxes. I'm sorry, no. No. Because we're not a 501c3, we're not a nonprofit organization. Because in doing so, you would have to give up the yeah, exactly.
There are restrictions that are unneeded. There are ways of going about getting the same kind of. We've talked about this before. Churches don't need that status.
No, they don't.
Because technically they can get it without having to file as that corporation or that kind of corporation.
Well,
and they limit themselves by doing so.
Right. And I really believe in everything that I'm seeing right now. There's going to be a reclassification of certain speech. If you criticize Islam, if you criticize even some political speech, dissenting political speech, will be classified as hate speech. There's a push for the fairness doctrine right now. You know that. That really is still percolating in the background, and the intent there is to quell any type of free expression. And the White House, Congress, as well, is behind this. And their intent is to label Christian talk as hate speech, to regulate it by law. And back when Pelosi was Speaker of the House, she called, and folks, again, I'm going back in history, but it's germane to today's topics. She labeled conservative and Christian talk radio as hate radio. So you can get on the air and glorify homosexual behavior or abortion or insert immoral act here, and that's fine. Pornography, obscene speech, flag burning, whatever you want to do. But it's coming. The day is coming when and I can see this, and I would say that this will be followed, or this will follow, terrorist attacks that will be blamed on Bible-believing Christians, gun-owning conservatives, religious conservatives, and social conservatives. Folks, I do see the day when we're going to get there will be massive terrorist attacks on our soil, massive, and I see the day coming soon. And whether it's birthed by racial tensions or via economic disaster, I think that this is where we're headed. My sources within various intelligence agencies are telling me, the massive bullet purchases. Of course, that was to that had a number of different reasons. There were a number of different reasons for that. They didn't need DHS didn't need 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. What it did was a number of things. It created a shortage of ammunition. Of course, it created this artificial shortage. Plus, it was a form of gun control. Now, if you go back during the time when these purchases were made, if you watch if you look at the events that were taking place at that same time, you will see that DHS might have averted. Do I say a revolution, or at least some sort of a start of one, or at least? And you might think, well, that's a little bit out there, but think about it. But watch, folks. We are going to be. We are in the crosshairs. If you're a Christian, you're in the crosshairs. If you are anti-abortion, you're in the crosshairs. Of course, you're saying, "Tell me something I don't know." But folks, there are people who are new to this program, listening to this program. They're not fully 100% awake yet. Hey, God bless you, man. I mean, we got to know where we are, where we stand, and how we got here. Even more importantly is how we got here, because you know what? They're revising history in our school books, in our classrooms. They're revising history. They're not telling us anything. They're not teaching this in history classes or social studies, as they're called now. But we're in the crosshairs, the Christians. And I would say that concurrent with maybe an economic collapse, or as a result of perhaps a racial event or 2 or 3 or 5, or even using the excuse, or even the very handy and convenient and always willing Muslims as the spark plug, the point of ignition. I do believe that we're going to see attacks or events that will lead to martial law in this country. And I was talking to somebody very, very well. I'll just say this: if I mention who this was, and I don't have his permission to say who this was, but he's a very well-known radio talk show host, very well-known. And it's not Glenn Beck or Rush Limbaugh, but he's very well-known across the country. And I asked him, I said, what do you think, about the 2016 elections? Hillary Clinton, is it going to be Hillary and Jeb Bush? And he said, I'm not sure we're going to make it that far. And then he said, but I'd never say that on the air. Now, this is a conservative talk show host. I've never met this individual in person, talked to him on the phone a number of times. Now here's a person that's heard that whose name would be instantly recognizable. But I'd never say that on the air. I don't know him well enough to say why not. I guess that's implied, right, Joe? I mean, I guess you could say the answer's obvious.
Depending on, I don't know who you're talking about, but the background, the belief system.
Well, the editorial control of the parent company. During the conversation, it was implied. I shouldn't say that he didn't leave me. I shouldn't say that he left me hanging completely. They do have certain parameters which this network has to abide by, and that's one of them. They don't talk about stuff like that. They're not supposed to talk about anything that would be considered conspiratorial. But that extended into several minutes later into my simple question, and that kind of circled back to that. So I'm thinking that perhaps that was an editorial decision, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We're not hamstrung by any editorial content. If anyone tries to edit our content or control our content, well, nobody does, and nobody will ever. And of that we promise you. So, all right, I didn't mean to just ramble like that, but I did.
Well, we'll start taking phone calls, as we're not getting very far in news. I don't know how many people saw this, but In California, they're talking about this mileage tax plan on cars because of falling gas tax revenue. And this article from CBS says, with an increase in electric and hybrid vehicles, along with better fuel-efficient vehicles, chasing Bay Area drivers' habits are posing a serious problem for state officials. As motorists use less and less gas tax revenues to pay for state highways, roads, and bridges sink. Meanwhile, gas prices fall, so does the sales tax generated by fuel sales. In California, among the taxes collected on fuel is 2.25 sales tax on gasoline and a 9.67 fuel on diesel. Some state lawmakers feel a mileage tax is the best solution. And the article goes on. I'm not going to get into it. But
how would they do that?
They pushed the electric car buying. They pushed the hybrid vehicle buying. And because of the consequences, as they say, of these things cutting into their gas revenue, which is what they want as their stated goal, they're going to punish people. And, I mean, is this something we're going to see a call for nationwide as gas prices continue to drop? I think oil closed at about $45 a barrel today.
Oil. Did you say gold?
Oil.
Okay.
No, not gold. Oil. So, we know we've been told by people that this is going to continue to drop, that they could sustain, that being the governments of the world could sustain anywhere from $18 to $25 a barrel on gas and still be okay. It's something that we're going to see. That they were calling for a mileage tax before, but is this something they're going to try and roll out as the prices fall shorter and shorter? And are the people going to let them roll this out? If you're in California, I'd get in front of that and talk to your lawmakers as soon as possible.
Lawmakers.
Whatever you want to call them. Law servers, law...
No, that's about right.
In this other article here, I thought this was interesting. I'll just read the headline. A 5-year-old Las Vegas girl dies from flu after receiving a flu shot earlier in the year. A 5-year-old Las Vegas girl died Tuesday after coming down with a strain of the flu she had been vaccinated for earlier in the year. She died due to cardiac arrest from influenza A. Her father said she had developed a cough and a fever, where she was taken to the ER, prescribed steroids and a nebulizer, and the paramedics were called to the house and unable to revive her. And the parents are furious after they had gotten a flu shot for this strand of flu specifically, and their child later dies. That's a sad story.
I saw a headline here, and I'll just touch on this, if you don't mind. Obama is not going to be going to Auschwitz, okay?
For the 70-year anniversary.
And, it just it amazes me that history is not taught anymore. And once again, I was talking to Ted Brewer about this, and we were talking about the various historical implications or historical events that have current day implications. And Auschwitz was, of course, that was the site of the largest extermination camps in Poland. And I caught I caught a film, and they were talking about Auschwitz, and the name of the Polish town before it was named Auschwitz, was a name I couldn't pronounce, and the Germans couldn't pronounce it either, so they changed it to Auschwitz. But it's interesting because the backstory there, the involvement of Prescott Bush, the Harrimans, I.G. Farben, all of this. People don't understand that the global elite were a part of the Holocaust, or
this was their plan to be able to bring Israel back on the map. As
right.
From my research, and this is something I have not researched extensively the Holocaust, the UN, Israel becoming a nation again. Like I said, extensively, I have a good idea. But from what I gather, the League of Nations that were started after World War I, that didn't complete the mission that they were tasked to complete, whatever that was, public and private, seems that they got their way after World War II, whatever they wanted out of that. whether it was the state of Israel to become a nation again, whether it was the United Nations, whether it was, I don't know. But they obviously got what they want, because really that's when the world war stopped. Those world wars stopped. And the regional conflict started from there, other regional conflicts.
Right. Now, it's interesting because when I was looking at this and researching this, yes, Obama is not going there, obviously, but to know the history of Auschwitz, the concentration camp in Auschwitz, the name, they renamed it, of course, the town. But to understand World War II, to understand how we, the American government, well, the globalists in particular, American industrialists, global industrialists, were actually helped build Auschwitz. The rail lines were complements of American industrialists. The gas used in Auschwitz, complements of American industrialists and German. You've got IG Farben Company, you've got Prescott Bush, you've got so many of these world globalist industrialists. It's just ridiculous. And I say this again, not to say not to fill airtime, but a lot of people we really need to go back and really understand how history has been manipulated, or at least our perception of history has been manipulated. It didn't start on 9/11. It didn't start in 1995 with Oklahoma, or 93 with the first bombing. It didn't even start with the Beirut in 83. No, it started long time ago. And the very same people, the very same families, Standard Oil, Rockefeller, Standard Oil, Rothschilds, all of these, J.P. Morgan, who is actually a front for the Rothschild. People look at J.P. Morgan and say, "Oh, well, he was one of the bad guys." He was, but he, out of 100% of the, he only had 70. He only represented 17% of 100% of the Rothschild fortune. And a couple of rules that history won't tell you. Or lessons, I shouldn't say rules. Lessons, number one, war is good for business. And number two, the people involved in creating wars, making wars, the people behind the scenes, they are keeping a low profile. And thirdly, they fund both sides. So lessons that we have to keep in mind as we go through not as we just consider the past, but as we look toward the future.
A couple just quick headlines I want to read, and we'll go right to the phones. I saw this 4.3 magnitude earthquake in Oklahoma. Strongest earthquake there in months, with minimal damage, which leads me to believe it's a fracking issue.
Right.
Another interesting headline that caught my eye, if people want to look further into it, this is up on Drudge. Administration continues to release border crossers, prompting fears of another surge. They warned us of a surge, a couple months before we got one this last time. And they're saying it again, so keep your eyes on that, as we don't know what's even going on. I saw there was a GOP bill about immigration that wanted to take $10 billion or $50 billion, but cut the border fences out and gave nothing to secure that border. So, there's more. Well, and there seems to be a discord inside the Congress, or the newly elected GOP House, I should say, with an abortion bill. I don't know if you saw about that. And this immigration amnesty thing was into this also, but there was an abortion law that was abandoned, and
right,
there was as I said, the amnesty situation. There was a lot of people that were just co-sponsored this abortion bill that jumped off the bill when they were going to vote on it. Regardless, it was a mess. So they got some issues going on in there. But we're going to shut up and we're going to take.
Well, wait! Before we shut up, Obamacare program. You're not going to read about this, or you're not going to hear about this on MSNBC or Fox. Folks, you want to take a guess how much in taxpayer money it costs? Obamacare. Now this is the much ballyhooed Obamacare. How much does it cost every taxpayer? For every how much does it cost taxpayers for every American who gets health insurance? This is by the CBO.
They said $50,000.
Yeah.
I saw that. I don't understand. Nobody's getting free health insurance here.
Well, the Congressional Budget Office reports that the revised cost estimates for the next 10 years, $50,000 in taxpayer money for every American who gets health insurance.
But see, what people fail to realize is that they're not getting free health care. Your taxes, anything you get back in taxes is gone if you get health care and you don't pay for it monthly. And even if you do, there's tax subsidies out there. Those are temporary loans against your tax return for those that work.
Yeah.
And go through that. Not including the other issues. I mean, I understand $50,000 a person seems a bit steep, considering most people are going to have to already pay a substantial amount to be in it.
But
and
think
if they're
about
not in
this
it, the
way,
fines alone.
Yeah, but they're not going to be paying fines. See, the best case scenario, as described by the CBO, says that between 24 and 27 million fewer Americans will be insured. Well, they're going to be uninsured. Okay, that's a better way to put it. Through in 2025, which is 10 years from now. Okay, so here's our projection.
And not to mention, before you jump in with this, they have the insurance companies already bailed out. So if the health care income isn't what they planned it to be, they have a subsidy to the health care companies that will make sure that they don't lose money.
Well, Obama has been billed as the $2 trillion man. Those people old enough to remember the $5 million man? The television program?
I can't remember.
Yeah, you don't. That's before your time. Or $2 million man? I don't know. It had what was that guy running real slow? Can't remember his name either. Anyway, the $2 trillion man, Obama. He was in India Monday, today, when the CBO reported the federal government's gross costs for a decade of Obamacare that they shoved down our throats. Pelosi on the left and everyone on the right as well. It's just one big party. $1.993 trillion. So the $2 trillion man. That's amazing. Well, all right. So let's do whatever you want to do, Joe.
Well, we got 10 minutes left in this hour. Let's take a phone call or two at 661-244-9839. 661-244-9839. Let's go to area code 407 first. 407, we're coming to you.
Sunny Orlando.
Good evening.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Al from Orlando. How you guys doing?
Very well.
Al, I remember we met you down in Florida last year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was me.
Yep.
And I haven't called you guys in a long time, but, obviously I still listen. And great show tonight, obviously. And you guys hit on a lot of cool things. What's up, brother?
No, I just want to say thank you. And can you, if you're on a speakerphone, can you put it on the handset, or can you speak in a little bit? Because we're getting some distortion there, and I can't really hear you too well.
Yeah. Sorry about that. A little bit better?
Yes, sir.
Much better.
Okay. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to see you guys this year. Obviously, I live in Orlando, but got the slave drivers working me. Yeah, man. Maybe you guys can actually try Colombian burger this time when you come down. I know I recommended it to you last time. So
thank you.
Either way, yeah, no problem, man. I've been having something on my heart probably for like the last month or so. Have you guys ever heard of a brother named Kent Hovind?
Yes.
Hovind?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he's actually, he's in prison right now, and he's been locked up 99 months. And he's a preacher. I guess Joe, Doug, you'll probably fill him in later on it, but he was a preacher. He done over 100 debates against, scientists and professors on evolution versus creation.
Absolutely. Yep.
He's a very, very smart, on-fire guy for the Lord. He actually went to prison in 2006. The IRS actually busted down his door in the middle of the night, guns blazing, took his 5-foot, 100-pound wife, threw her in the car without even letting her put on clothes, threw her in the car. And they actually got him for structuring, which is a drug dealer's offense. He's been doing a lot of interviews on phone and stuff like that, and I believe that if there's anybody, out there that knows anything about law or anything like that, I think that this is the time for us to shine light and make noise in biblical terms, if you know what I mean. He's actually he's already served 99 months in jail, and they are actually trying to, he was supposed to get out this February on good, he's done 85% of his Fed time. He's supposed to get out this February. They actually hit him with 5 more charges of mail fraud because he mailed out a Liz pendants from the jail to, secure his property, just to let them know that, it's still in litigation. I'm sure you guys know what that means or whatever. So
yes.
They actually hit him with 5 counts of mail fraud, and they're trying to give him 20 years for each count and give him 120 years after he's already served 8.5. When you have people like Wesley Snipes, he's already out. You got people like Al Frank, our old buddy, the Peacock over there. He owes $4.5 million to the feds, to the IRS. And I think if there's anybody out there that can help and, look into it a little bit more, there's a guy, he talks to him every day. His name is, I think on YouTube, it's Lone Star 1776. Kent talks to him just about every day from jail. He would do an interview with anybody and talk to anybody off, he can't talk live because he's in prison, but he would do an interview to have it played. And I just think that it's the right thing to do. And if there's ever a time that we need to stand up and fight for our brother in the Lord, this is one of those times. The same judge that gave him the structuring charges, by the way, 3 years of the charges that he had were actually for praying for the IRS agent. They gave him 3 years for threatening an IRS agent because he prayed for him on the radio. The same IRS agent that put him into jail went days afterward, seized the church's bank account. A couple days after, he flew to Detroit and got arrested with a bottle of Vaseline and a doll because he was going to go have sex with a 5-year-old. He hung himself. This is one of the lead prosecutors in the case. He hung himself days after he was in jail. The same judge that gave him the structuring charges is actually over his trial this time as well, and she will not buckle down and say that she has any favoritism or any discrimination against Christians. This lady is in Pensacola, Florida. Her name is Judge Margaret Casey Rogers. She actually has been in the news before, and I've seen her before in the news because I'm in Florida. She actually put 2 teachers in jail and was going to give them jail time. She arrested them. She was going to give them jail time for praying in school, but it wasn't even a school activity. It was just between the teachers, and they prayed over their food. And she was going to sentence them years, but some congressmen kind of dipped into it and looked into it, so they dropped the charges. But if there's ever a time that you guys could shine light on anything, I pray that you guys would please, put it out there on the airwaves. Maybe you guys can't do anything yourself, but there are people out there that listen to this show, and we're all a Hagmann family. I just, it's really been heavy on my heart, and I can't sit here and let this man do another 120 years in jail without us at least, God's going to get the glory anyway. He's saved over 500 people since he's been in prison.
Wow.
He's just an amazing man. And if you watch some of his videos on YouTube, I would say be very careful, because when you start watching them, you get engulfed and you will be watching them 24/7. The man is just amazing. And if you know anything like I'm talking about, Doug, you know what I'm saying. So his trial is coming up on February 9th. And
Yep.
If there's anything anybody can do out there that can shine some light, they've been trying to do interviews on Alex Jones. I know that you guys have connections there. I mean, obviously you can't pull anybody's leg, but they've been trying to get him on Alex Jones, and he's been on Pastor Manning's radio show. He's been around. So I love you guys, man, and I really hope that we can get this guy out and get him back out here fighting for the Lord out here on the street.
We'll see what we can do, and we'll see what we can do. Look, I hope to see you in Florida. We could talk about this.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Hopefully I can see you guys. And Joe, I'd like to recommend the book for you if you guys haven't heard of it. It's called The Pink Swastikas. I don't know who actually wrote it. Okay, because I know Joe said something about looking into it. I just thought it was really crazy that these guys are, 75, 80% of his army was homosexual. I think that's amazing. That's just something that they will never show on the History Channel.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that, first of all, the Nazi Party. See, people believe that Nazi Germany or the Nazi National Socialist Party lost the war, World War II. Well, that's not exactly true. If you really think about it outside of the outside of history, which you're taught, really, the Nazis have infiltrated our government, and there's this strange incestuous relationship between the National Socialists and the Dulles brothers and the Prescott Bush. And I mean, we're talking about a Nazi party here in this country, and it's flourishing. But a cornerstone of that National Socialist Party, a big part of that was the homosexual agenda. People have no idea. And if you go into the Skull and Bones and, the overlap between National Socialists and Skull and Bones and the different clubs where they pardon me for saying this, I mean, to initiate them, you're talking about anal sex, you're talking about just all sorts of horrible things. But yes, a big part of this, a big part of Hitler's, the pink swastika. In fact, I've got 2 copies of that book, and Joe, I will give you one right after the show tonight, because you didn't know I had it. We've got like 1,400 books. And,
I want to check that out.
I know you guys have a pretty extensive library there. So
we do.
God bless you guys, man. Right. Thank you guys for everything that you guys do, and if you can do anything for Kent Hovind, or if any of the listeners out there can do anything, can look into it. I mean, obviously, money isn't going to be anything that's going to help this man at this point. It's going to have to be like the story in the Bible about shining the light and making the noise and scaring everybody off that way. He can't win in court there, but he can win in the court of public opinion, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
people just have to know about it.
I'm very, very, very absolutely Kent Hovind. I've gotten a lot of emails about Kent Hovind, and Irwin Schiff is kind of in the same boat, different circumstances, but in federal prison. So, but very good. Yes,
God bless
thank you so much.
Man.
All right, man.
God bless you too, Al. Thanks for calling.
Yep. And folks, Kent Hovind, Hovind, like dog, Kent Hovind, the trial, I think it's been reset for the 9th of February. This stems from an October 21st, 2014 indictment by a federal grand jury in Pensacola on 2 counts of mail fraud, as Al had mentioned. 1 count of conspiracy to commit mail fraud and 1 count of criminal contempt. But the original charges stem from tax issues. He was sentenced to 10 years. I think it was in 2007. Yeah, it was January 19, 2007. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison in order to pay the federal government $600,000 at that point, or at that time, 10 years, and then 3 years of probation, 3 consecutive years following his release. During the sentencing phase, I'm not going to get into that.
Obviously scared for some reason. I think it's the knowledge. I mean, when the IRS and the government get a taste of their own medicine, they don't like it.
Well, and if everyone see, this is the problem. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we don't. There are not enough I've always wanted to do this. I've always wanted to say, look, on June 1st, or you pick a date. I don't know. Pick a date in the future. We all just not cooperate with the TSA, or something to that effect. What happens is there will be infiltration into that initiative. There will be people. When I say infiltration, I'm talking about people who will get into that and say, "Well, we're just not going to stop it not being cooperative. We're going to slug a TSA guy." Okay, so anything that we do right now, and we have to be very careful with what we do, and please listen carefully, because there are people out there, and folks, you know who I'm speaking about. Chances are you know who I'm speaking about. There are people out there who will take a statement, who will take who you think are on your side, and they will take a knife, I'm talking figuratively, of course, and not just stab you in the back with it, but twist it. And you see, that's a microcosm, in my view, of what the people like us out there are trying to. We're trying to educate people, but there is so much infiltration. There is so much baloney. Really, I mean, unsubstantiated slander, libel, you name it, it's out there. And it's being done. You might think it's being done for a positive purpose. It's not. It's being done. There's an agenda behind it. And the agenda is dangerous. And I, you know what? Oftentimes, Joe and I will talk, and truth-telling, telling the truth, can be dangerous. It can be. And Thursday, you're going to hear how dangerous with Rebecca Roth. Thursday, you're going to hear it.
Take our top of the hour break. We'll be right back.
Hour number 3 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I'm Doug Hagmann in the studio with my son Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. That was Bertane Duckworth. Bertane Duckworth. If you go to hagmannhagmann.com, I think there's it's under bumper music there, or I don't know where it's. You have to check the main menu, but you can. Bertane Duckworth is an artist, a friend of the program. He. What a song! What a fantastic song! It's called Doubts. If you want to get in touch with him, and I've had several requests by people, and I just haven't had the opportunity to answer yet. Just simply go to put his name in a search engine, Bertane, Brittain, Duckworth, and it'll bring up a YouTube account. Just get a hold of him via YouTube. Some people have said, "Gee, I want to compliment him on a song, or I want to purchase his song." I don't know if he's selling. I haven't talked with him in a while, so I don't know if he's selling that song or not. Don't forget, folks, Thursday, Rebecca Roth. Wow, it's going to be a powerful program. If you didn't hear the earlier program, it's going to be about. It's a fiction. She's the author of a fictional novel, but not so fictional. Flight Attendant. Methodical Illusion is the name of the book. I cannot wait. I read that book. Man. If you have, and you can, it's kind of funny. In our conversation, I'll just share this with you very quickly. In our conversation this weekend, we had just a lot of emails saying you got to get on your program. Well, I want to thank you, Bob and Maggie, as well, because it was when I got their email, I thought, well, okay. I contacted Ms. Roth. Now listen to this. And I'll tell Rebecca this when I talk with her this week, or maybe on air. When I called her, unbeknownst to me, at the very same moment I called her, her publisher sent me an email asking if we'd be interested in having her on. At that very moment. Now think about that. Now, I know things happen, okay? I know it could be coincidence. And then we got to talking, and she said, I'm not sure I can say that because, well, I'll just say this: she needed something, and for the publication of her book, it was an object, and somebody had. We'll just call it a stack of papers, and she got it in time for her book to include in their book, or to extract the information to put that information in her book. But she got it on Christmas Eve. The postage was $9.11. Her book, by the way, is $9, or the Kindle version is $9.11. But it just seemed that there was a lot of divinely inspired things happening, and people, non-believers or people who don't subscribe to that will say, "Oh, you know what, Doug? You're just, you're just blowing smoke." But it's interesting because when I think about this, of all the people who asked to have her on, and I contacted her, and at the very moment, without me knowing it, her publisher was trying to contact me to ask if we'd be interested in having her on. Things don't happen that way all the time. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. So Thursday, Rebecca Roth. Wednesday, Greg Jackson. Tuesday, Stan Dale. Tomorrow, Stan Dale. Now he's going to have a birthday coming up. I think it's the week that follows. So be sure to wish him a happy birthday. Anyway.
It's a milestone. We'll let him tell you.
Yeah.
Let's go to the phones. We're going to go to the callers now. Let's start here, area code 805. We're going to come to you. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello. I was just going to say, I just read an article I thought was pretty interesting that China, in the last 3 years, used more cement than the United States did in the 20th century.
Wow.
I just thought that was... Yeah.
Huh.
In 3 years, they used more concrete than the United States did in the 20th century.
Wow. Most cities.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Martin Luther King. I was looking at some articles, and in 1999, the King family had a civil suit against the conspiracy of Martin Luther King. Do you know about this?
No, not at all.
See, this I tell you what, Doug, this is what really gets me. You know, like in 1982, 1983, there was like 80-something companies that owned the media. And today it's down to 5 or 6.
6, yes.
So in 1999, the King family in Memphis Court, Tennessee, won the suit against the conspiracy of Martin Luther King, and there were 70 witnesses. It was like 3 or 4 week trial, and like I said, the King family won it. And at the end of the jury took 1 hour, and it took 70 witnesses that finally came down to, they say the person who killed Martin Luther King was Hoover, the local police, and the FBI. And that was in the court of law. 1999. We never heard a single word about that.
I just pulled this up. Just to be clear, caller, I just pulled this up. In fact, this is on the King Center website, thekingcenter.org. And I'll just very quickly here read 2 sentences here, caller, and then you can comment on this. After 4 weeks of testimony, after 4 weeks of testimony and over 70 witnesses in the civil trial in Memphis, 12 jurors reached a unanimous verdict on December 8th, 1999, an hour of deliberations, just like you said, that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and listen carefully, folks, was assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. And the second sentence I'll read here is, let me just pick my, the jury also affirmed overwhelming evidence that identified someone else, not James Earl Ray, as the shooter. Wow. We didn't hear a doggone thing about it, did we?
Not, and what? We're going on 16 years, and they just had the movie. I haven't seen it. Now, I doubt if they even mentions this in the movie. But like I said, I haven't seen Selma yet. Excuse me. But that just blows me away. I mean, they'll put Paris Hilton on there or for something, but not a word about that. To me, I think that's incredible.
Well, does this not, caller, doesn't this kind of fall into line with the assassination of Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, that is? We've interviewed her researcher, I'm sorry, Joe, you know who I'm talking about. We interviewed...
Pepper?
The woman who interviewed Sirhan like and spent talked to Charlie Manson in there. Trying to think of her name. Oh, she's elderly now, but
yeah, I know who you're talking. Evelyn.
I know that Sirhan to this day says he does not remember a thing.
Oh,
and at the time they said it was 3 bullets, and now it's 11. And he was in front of him, and he was shot from behind. Right,
exactly. Sirhansresearcher.com. That's Sirhansresearcher.com is the website. Folks, if you have not visited that website, not to derail or to deflect your call, but I got to tell you, what a fantastic source of information. And we had interviewed her. Forgive me, who I don't recall her name, but we had interviewed her a couple of times, actually. Talked to her on the phone, and just amazing information. And I do believe that the Sirhan or Robert F. Kennedy, as well as Martin Luther King.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And I do believe that they're a product of MK Ultra or mind control, because in speaking
Definitely.
with her name's on the tip of my tongue, and I can't find it on her website, but anyway, she had confided in us that Sirhan looked at her and said, "Look, man, I purple dress or polka dotted dress," and that was the last thing he remembered. So.
Yeah, there was a lady running out of the kitchen, I believe. Was that the one wearing the polka dot dress? Because there was a woman involved in that too.
Yes.
But Pepper, I think, is that his last name? Pepper. He was the same lawyer for Martin Luther King, and he's the lawyer for Sirhan also, the attorney or the lawyer. His name's Pepper, I believe. But it's just like you say about our history. Almost everything we have heard, it's all not true. Look, Oliver Stone made a movie on the history of the United States, that how much disinformation and how much we've been lied to and so on. But
would you on that? Would you be surprised if I told you that Oliver Stone's movie was actually a CIA, in part a CIA creation? Would that surprise you?
Nothing would surprise me today. You guys talk about Drudge, and this one lady, I was reading an article from her, and I forget what she was upset about, but she was going to go to Drudge, but she says she found out Murdoch owns him.
Really? I'm not familiar with who owns Drudge. I've heard some things that kind of made my eyebrows kind of go up.
Right.
About unsubstantiated things. I don't know. I don't know. We have to be so careful, don't we? I mean, every single, no matter what you hear or what you read, we have to be so careful. Even if we say it, please check it out. Please verify it.
Definitely. There is one. I just watched a document. It was 3.5 hours on John F. Kennedy. It was called something Rich Man Tricks.
I got it right here.
Like
JFK to 9/11. Everything is a rich man's trick. It's 3 hours.
Oh my God!
7 minutes and 55 seconds. I watched it. I watched it. Actually, part of it today. Yep. It's an amazing 3.5 hours, and I was thinking about putting a link on it to my website, but 3.5 hours. But it gets into everything or a lot of things that we talked about tonight. Yes,
there was Kerry Cassidy was interviewing a Robert Morningstar, and he said that Jackie Kennedy, I'm not sure if he told him or where he got the information, that she saw 5 shots from the grassy knoll, and of course, if you they have 8 shooters in that
8 shooters
video.
Yep, 8 shooters in the video.
And mainly it was below. The one that got him was the guy in the gutter.
In the storm sewer. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, and for listeners listening to this, JFK to 9/11, everything's a rich man's trick. You could just search that on the internet. Well, I'll put it up on the website after the show. I'll link to it. But it's a pretty good investment of your time. The only thing that there were some things that I felt. I mean, about switching the bodies after the assassination, or after or following the when he took Kennedy's body out of the hospital. The one thing, caller, I don't know if did you watch the whole thing through, or
except for about the last 28 minutes.
Okay, one thing I found extremely interesting, caller, was I never understood why J.D. Tippit was gunned down. And did you see that part?
Yeah, yes, but I listened to Robert Morningstar said his head was so massive. I mean, it was just nothing there. He says the brain was leaking out.
Right.
They needed another brain, actually, to insert to Kennedy. And Tippit looked same, like nose and ears and mouth. He split his screen. Yeah. And did you hear who they said killed him?
Yes, G. Gordon Liddy. That's the allegation on the video. Makes sense. Well, now, actually, I talked to Gordon Liddy one time. He'd never know who. I mean, he wouldn't remember me from anybody. But interesting conversation I had with him. It was about a business matter, unrelated to anything of his program or anything like that, but I find it a little hard to believe. The guy is very detail conscious. The allegation or assertion is that he shot Tippit in the temple when he should have mimicked the way that the assassination went down. And the only thing I had a problem with about that was, well, would Liddy kill this guy and then screw it up? Or a guy like Liddy, would he screw up the way that he was supposed to be shot? No, I suppose it happens. I don't know, but very interesting premise.
Well, they sort of screwed up with the caskets, and they made some mistakes. But what do you think? What was there? 4 presidents in Dallas that day? Like, was it Nixon, Johnson, Bush, and well, of course Kennedy was there. I thought there was one more, but it's
there was a 4th there. Who was it? Nixon? Nixon was there. Johnson was there.
Bush was there.
Bush, the Bush Senior, and I don't know.
Unless I don't know if Ford was there, but well, of course Johnson. Well, you see in the video where they had 20 guys at this guy's house the night before. We said Johnson. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Clint Murchison, the oil baron, the night before. Yes.
Yeah.
Man.
And then you have his mistress saying that Johnson said, "Those Kennedys will never bother me again."
Right. Never embarrassed me again. And and of course the climate in Washington at that time, absolutely. Wow. And of course, what was it, Bobby Baker and Billy Solestis, heavily involved in this. And of course, LBJ's personal hitman. And if you go through
the guy, the actress.
Yeah. Well, no, you had Woody Harrelson's father and, my goodness, Frank Sturgis and, all of the usual suspects. But
and how about Howard Hunt?
Yes.
And he was supposed to be the fall guy.
Well, the fall guy was
Oswald, really.
I'm trying to think of there's a name. In fact, I took notes. It's there in my office, not here in the studio. I don't know exactly. But the interesting part of that, though, everything was a lie. And as a matter of fact, in that broadcast, one thing I about fell off my chair when I was watching this. They talk about Tosh Plumlee, a gentleman we've had on the air, who was actually flying, who flew, allegedly, this is the assertion, and Tosh Plumlee, who was on our radio show a couple of times, referenced this vaguely, in a veiled manner, where he flew unknowingly a couple of the assassins of the assassination team into love field before the assassination. Wow.
And how about how the Secret Service, they backed off from the limousine that Kennedy was in?
Right.
And did you see the driver turn around with a gun?
Yes. Well, not with a gun now. I didn't see that, but it was a Zapruder film and the other film that was taken concurrent. There were two films. Both edited. The car, that Secret Service guy turned around twice, and that car, Kennedy's car, almost came to a complete stop. You don't see that because that was edited out of the film. And I've had people tell me, people connected with intelligence agencies tell me that car almost came to a complete stop.
Actually, I thought it said, maybe it was Robert Morningstar that said it actually stopped twice, just for a second. And he said there was wood flying off because there was a billboard. Now, this is what Jackie told him, that there was holes in the signs from Grassy Knoll, that there was actually wood flying because putting the holes through there, and they removed that sign, and it's
right
somewhere. They still got it somewhere, whatever he was saying. But, I mean, it just goes on, and just how much lies we've been to. And look at...
Yeah. It lies
look at the Warren Commission. We still can't get the real truth, and just like 9/11, the commission, it's just full of cover-ups, and they don't want to answer these questions, and it's just unbelievable that stuff like this happens in this country now.
Well, it's interesting you brought that movie up. I just want to say thank you and move on, but God bless you, my friend. Great call, and man, we must be thinking alike today. Fantastic. All right.
Thank you.
All right, brother.
Thank you, caller. God bless you.
Take care, man.
Let's go to area code 916 next. 916. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe.
Good evening.
Hey. Shalom, shalom. How you guys doing?
Shalom, shalom.
Doing great.
It's the shofar friend from California.
Get your lips ready.
Yeah, hey, a couple things, just confirmation. I got in this, like at the beginning of this year, the Lord said there would be an acceleration in all things. And that gentleman that spoke, that pastor that was in jail for 99 months or whatever, then I just saw that yesterday. I saw a video of that. So, and then you spoke, Doug, of your friend about the producer or whatever, that you got that same time that you get the email or whatever.
Yep.
So there's an acceleration, and to look forward and not behind more than ever before. And I was just thinking of in the book of Matthew, and Joe, if you can go to Isaiah 40 verse 31, and I'm going to read Matthew 11 verse 12, and this is to all the wicked terrors out there that are monitoring the demonic airways of this world. From the days of John the Baptist unto now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. And if you can read Isaiah 40, verse 31, Joe, and then I'm going to just end with what happened when Nathan Leal was on Thursday night, something that happened that is supernatural, and people need to pay attention.
Man.
Isaiah 41 is as follows, but they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint.
And the last one is 41 verse 10. Fear not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, and I will help you. Yea, I will uphold you with thy right hand of my righteousness. Behold, all they that were incensed against they or you shall be ashamed and confounded, and they shall be as nothing. Let me repeat that. They shall be as nothing, and they that strive against you shall perish. And that is the word of the Lord Yahweh. We're and we gotta have and I say this, we gotta have fun, but it's gotta be through diligence with the Lord more than ever before. And I just thank God that God has equipped you guys for this end times. When Nathan was on Thursday night, next day I was working on the back of my property on the east side of the property. I was on a trail cleaning up some brush, and I have little trails in there. And I look down and I see this gold object. It's like, I don't know, about the size of a big ring, and it was upside down, and I flipped it over, and I knew right what it was. It was like in Boy Scouts when they have the tie that goes around their neck, and they have the little thing that cinches up. Now, this thing was brand new, and when I flipped it over, what was on the front of it was the face of a bear. And I sent that email to Nathan, and he replied back to me and said that he had gotten a lot of emails, people, responding, but he says yours was very unique. I asked the listeners and all of us, God, Yahweh is wanting us to know the tactics, the strategies and everything come out of the Bible, but the tactics. And I've been praying, Lord, give us the tactics of the enemy and the time frame. And it's coming, and most people aren't prepared. We are.
No, they're not.
No. Yeah, we are. God's church is prepared. And, don't be dismayed. Don't be moved by what you see or hear. Only be moved by what God shows you and what he tells you.
Amen. We can study the tactics of the enemy. We have to, and in fact, it's wise to do so. But we also have to realize that God is in charge. And I, as a guy, you always want to be in control. But I think the ultimate evidence of manhood is to realize who really is in charge, and that's God Almighty. So, amen. Amen. Wow, that's interesting about that.
And it is the war. And Doug, I just want to encourage you that when people ask for prayer, and sometimes I hear you, and man, you're a mighty man of God, and never doubt that. And
thanks.
And you've been called for such time. You've been called for such a time as this, and God needs you. Even if it's just say, Lord, touch the situation. Simple sometimes is better. Prayer.
I can relate to simple. I like simple.
Amen. And the reason why, Doug, is that God in the Scripture says, I don't come with eloquent words, but I come in power, and I do. I come in the power, the great power, not just power. I come in the great power of our King, and I just loose it right now from God, from your throne. I loose it right now in this place right now, and I ask King of Glory to just touch Joe and Doug in such an amazing way. Their wives, Father God, their family, just everything that belongs to them. We just apply your blood, and I'm going to sound the shofar, and you go to the next caller.
All right.
Hallelujah.
Amen, brother.
Thanks, Lars.
You got the tone all the way to the red. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you.
The devil is a liar.
All right. Another great call. Let's go here. We got more lined up. We're going to go to area code 617 next. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe and Doug. How you doing?
Good evening.
Hello.
What's up? What's up?
Dustin from Boston.
Hey.
How you doing, Dustin?
Boy, am I so happy that I went to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com and stocked up on. You wouldn't believe how many people are worrying about the storm and wishing that they had gone to AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com. So I just want to thank you for that.
You're good people, I got to tell you.
And a couple of things. I think, oh geez, where do I start? I did see Selma, and saw it with my mentor, my Christian mentor, who he knew some of the people that were actually in that movie, and he was all concerned about how Lyndon Johnson was going to be betrayed. But let me just read something here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, it'll just take that as what it is. God asked a rhetorical question in Scripture. Can a mother forsake the fruit of her womb? Even if she could, I could not forsake you, says the Lord your God. The rhetorical question was meant to be put forth as an unthinkable absurdity, yet millions of mothers today perform that unthinkable absurdity. And many more millions, mostly men, think approvingly that the unthinkable work of Moloch. Also, in the final conclusion, optimism or pessimism, we don't have a crystal ball. Society is like a car with the rear wheel. We have rear wheel mirrors looking in the back. But what's the bottom line? We fought the Revolutionary War, which only gave us our political independence, if that.
Right.
I'll get back to that. So the 21st century will be either one of two things. Either it will be the best since the 13th, or the worst since the 21st, before the call of Abraham, before the founding of Judaism. It all depends on which side wins the current war. Either we will build the Gothic cathedrals again from a restored faith, or we will build the Tower of Babel again from a restored apostasy. Please do. Please help save the world. Please be a saint. And on that, on the first show of the New Year's, I thought you guys kicked it off really great. Doug, you were calling into question, and I think it's a really good question to ask, the Founding Fathers, Masonic ties. Okay?
Right.
And in this book by Sir Francis Bacon called The New Atlantis and the Secret Destiny of by William P. Hall and things like that. Okay? Now, you left out something that I thought was interesting, but I think it's actually what you were actually probably trying to get at. One of my prophecies for 2015, which I did call on that show, I did make, was that they will change our culture through language. I'm sadly seeing this prophecy come true. You change the language, change the culture through the law. The King James Version of the Bible was an attempt by an Enochian magician. I mean, it was put forth by a court, the Dragon Court of Queen Elizabeth, and Shakespeare at the same time. They created this, what we now know as modern English. And if you go to a certain psalm, I've heard, Psalm 47 maybe, the last word is spear, first word is shake, so Shakespeare. So the idea is that you dump this on the people, and that you create the language, and now they're trapped in spelling, in a real spell, you see. So anyway, and besides all that, and I rate you guys immensely.
We've gotten your emails.
Okay.
Okay.
If you'd like to ask me, my connections. I can tell you right now that nobody looks into the secret fraternity that Ray Kurzweil belonged to.
Specifically, which secret societies or fraternities are you referring to with respect to Kurzweil?
Oh, he went to school at MIT, you see. So we're not supposed to talk about those things. But goes by this typical fraternity. You won't find them online,
But again, I asked.
You know what? I'll show you that after the.
Okay. All right.
You have it too. You just might have overlooked it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the name of it is TEP, and they had a whole brownstone, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. I love you guys. and I love being part of this Hagmann family.
I'm glad you're with us.
Yeah, and I feel closer to God when I'm closer to you guys, because the closer we come to this in this century of the end of civilization, or the salvation of it. Where do we go? I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm amongst the listenership that is so well educated, so on top of all. I'm glad I'm hearing reports that I would never hear in the mainstream news from you, Doug and Joe, and the investigations that you guys talk about. I mean, it's just, it's amazing. I mean, I do not hear this. And then to tie it all back to Christ.
I really appreciate that. Well, God bless you, my friend, and I just want to say thank you so much for your support of us and word of mouth and everything. We're glad you're part of our extended family of listeners. We really appreciate you, and know that we read your emails. I read your emails. I know Joe does. We just can't respond to them all, but your information is enlightening, to say the least. And I just want to say God bless you, my friend.
God bless you guys. Keep doing the good work. Thank you so much. I love you.
All right, brother.
Bye.
Thank you. Joe, that caller mentioned something. I just want to advise people about this. Now, if you haven't heard about this, all right, please understand, I've been researching this. I have not cleared this with Pastor David Langford. I need to do that, only because, I respect, he's a man of God, and I respect him. The New King James Version of the Bible. I don't know how many people know this. It's got some problems, I've found. I've been doing some research, and folks, you know that one of the greatest methods of deception is to counterfeit, and we know the master counterfeiter, the master of deception, is Satan. We are told in 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14 and 15, that warns of Satan's counterfeit. Okay. And among, I believe, one of the most pervasive counterfeits out there, this is my opinion based on my research, which has not, again, I need to verify this through Pastor Langford, but the New King James Version of the Bible. If you're a Christian out there, you might say, well, look, I'd never touch an NIV Bible. I'd never use a New American Standard Bible or whatever. But have you seen the New King James Version of the Bible? Perhaps you're using one. If you are, there is a interesting symbol, a mysterious mark on the front of the book. It's Thomas Nelson Publishers claim that on the inside cover, the symbol, it's an ancient symbol for the Trinity. Now, if you go to Acts 17:29, you're warned against using symbology. Okay, that's kind of an interesting context there for the mark. This Aquarian type of symbol is used. Some people say it represents an interwoven 6 or 666. There's an author by the name of Constance Cumbry, the author of Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. She's an authority on the New Age movement. She said, on the cover of the Aquarian Conspiracy is a Mobius. It's really used by them. It's really used as like a 666. That symbol on the cover of the Aquarian Conspiracy is, in fact, very close in design and appearance to the Thomas Nelson Publishers King James Version of the Bible. Now, it's the triqueta. It's used as a centerpiece for the logo for the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. Again, that's very close in the design. And the same symbol, with a circle, is displayed by the rock group Led Zeppelin. A triqueta inside a circle. Now, do we stop there? No, it's more than the symbol. The preface to the New King James Version of the Bible says, a special feature of the New King James Version is its conformity to the thought flow of the 1611 Bible. Now, that, to me, okay, that sounds really great. The difference of this Bible, New King James Version Bible, the changes that you will find is the removal of the much maligned thee, thou, ye, and so on. The preface of the New King James Version of the Bible says, thee, thou, and ye are replaced by the simple you. These pronouns are no longer part of our language, but thee, thou, and ye are no longer part of the language during the 1611 version either. If you just read the intro to the 1611 King James, there are no thee, thou, and ye. In fact, Webster's third New International Dictionary says of ye, used from the earliest of times to the late 13th century. And anyway, that Bible was published in the 1700s. But the bottom line is this. There are, I'm looking at my notes here, there are numerous omissions. Let me get to my cliff notes here real quick, because this is important. This is important. Okay, here it is, right here. The New King James Version of the Bible has removed the word Lord, L-O-R-D, Lord, 66 times. It removes the word God 51 times. Removes the word heaven 50 times. In just the New Testament alone of the New King James Version of the Bible, it removes 2,289 words. The New King James Version makes over 100,000 word changes. And most will match the NIV, the NASV, the RSV. Yet Thomas Nelson Publishers claim, this goes back to 1982, that nothing has been changed except to make the original meaning clearer. So is it a counterfeit? Is it? Something I'm struggling with. I don't have the answer. I'm going to submit my findings to Pastor David Langford. He can tell me what he thinks. But for me, one of the changes, and I'll stop here. The word servant, changing the word servant to slave. Now you might think, wait a minute.
There's no big deal there?
Right.
Well, I remember verses where, we're a servant.
Christ's servant?
Right.
To replace it as Christ's slave?
I don't mean called a slave except for the connotation it leaves on the Creator.
Right. Well, I'll stop there. Just something it's kind of to put in the back of your mind there. Again, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I just think it's important that we, again, you're looking at things that may not at the surface be an issue, but perhaps the agenda or something behind it or something we're not seeing clearly. Kind of like the people who will make accusations or assertions against others, and it's not done with love. It's done with an agenda. Is this the changes here? Is there an agenda here? I don't know. I really don't know. If it was one thing, fine. If it was one innocuous thing that easily explained, I could understand it. But I just want to kind of give a tip off to listeners. So, Joe.
We got 8 minutes left. Let's grab a phone call here. I think this is a caller from Montana, 406 area code. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
How are you doing, Doug and Joe?
Cold.
Yeah.
But not as cold as you.
Are you cold?
Yeah,
we thought it was cold in Montana, but I heard you guys have quite a storm back there.
We're all right, but New York and Boston, they better watch out.
Yeah, just two comments there about the Bible translation. You guys would, if you really want to go into it a little deeper, Doug, Les Garrett is probably the top expert in the world on the subject, and so is Gail Riplinger. Both of them are experts on the Bible translation, and you're completely right about that Bible being off. It is way off. But those guys have some incredible data. Les Garrett's top expert in the world. But anyway, what I was going to ask you, I didn't get to hear the first part of the show. Maybe you talked about this, but what's going on in Greece? What's your take on that?
We didn't talk about that.
I saw today there was was it F-16 or an F-35 crash? 10 killed, 13 injured last time I looked. I don't know, other than I haven't seen what's been going on in the country. If you're referring to something else, if their unrest is kicking back up.
I just meant with the communist takeover. I meant with the communist takeover there, with the elections that communists were voted in.
Oh, yeah. I saw something about this on Drudge where they're talking about the left of Europe versus the right of Europe, the political parties and the divide there. I did not see anything pertaining to the specific election in Greece.
I think what we're seeing here, because of the historic win that we saw in Greece, I really believe that what we're watching is the dismantling of the European Union. That's coming, and see, people will say, well, wait a minute, I thought the whole purpose was a new world order. Well, it is, but they have to break the system before they can rebuild the system. And
Alexis, how do you say that? Tispraza?
I don't even ask.
He's the new prime minister of Greece. He's a radical leader of the radical. He's the leader of the new radical left in Greece. Yeah.
So, this is to me anyway, caller. And I don't know. I'll get your take on this, but isn't this a little difficult to like? You look at things, and there's so many angles to this, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, we just have to. I'm not going to go into detail, but deep ties to Greece, and it seemed such a departure from the old way,
Well, yeah. I did see a sign there when I was doing show prep. A sign from protesters in Athens. They were holding up a sign that says "Keep calm and go to hell." Okay. Boy, doesn't that kind of fit a lot of...
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. That's,
probably a lot like our country, the dismantling of what we've known. And
right.
Yeah,
I do see the European Union kind of being fractured, and I think that's a collateral effect of, well, maybe not a collateral effect, but an intent of the asymmetrical warfare between the warring powers, that is, between the U.S. and Russia, and even the U.S., Russia, and China, where the globalists will break the various unions, create other unions like Russia and China together to reformat the globe in preparation for the 10 regions or the 10 world or 10 global powers. So that's what I think.
Yeah, well, I appreciate your input. Have you guys ever heard of Gail Riplinger or Les Garrett before?
No. No.
Well, you can listen to it like a Gail Riplinger. She was Stanford University or some university professor. And she spent years studying Bible translations. And has a 2.5-hour presentation that just goes into nitty-gritty detail about what's gone on with each one of these translations. And Les Garrett, I've met this man, amazing man, and he has more input on it than anybody I've ever heard of. Just amazing guy. But when you have no doubt when you hear their input, you go, wow. It's definitely a conspiracy.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'll have to take a look. I did write those names down. I'll have to add that to the research. But God bless you, my friend. Thank you so very much.
Hey, you too. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you a lot.
Hey, appreciate you as well. Stay warm.
Have a great night.
And ladies and gentlemen, I do hope I did send, my goodness, quite a few pieces of mail out over the last couple of days. If you're listening to this program, if you had requested our logos, for display, I've sent out probably maybe 40% of the requests, and working on some more. So hang tight, and I want to thank you all for those of you who expressed interest. That's something we don't charge for. We just send them out. And like-minded people, you might have a little logo on your car, and people don't really know what it is unless you're a listener to the program. And hey, in your city, maybe you bump into someone with the same Bumper sticker. It's happened. It's happened.
Or you can get an overt one with the name on it.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, actually, both have the name, or all of them have the name.
Real little, I guess, on the smaller one.
Yeah. We're out of a couple of designs. We do have the ovals and the circular ones, and the bumper sticker is fighting the New World Order one. The other ones are we have to order more. But
those go quick.
Man, I'll tell you. Yeah. But I just want to thank you all for deliberately listening to the program, purposefully listening. Dr. Ted Rohrer, by the way, will be on a week from Friday. We have him scheduled for the 6th of February. But again, folks, this Thursday, Rebecca Roth, man, tell a friend about that. Also, Prophecy in the News Conference, March 5th, 6th, and 7th. We hope to see you down there. We really do.
We don't see you down there. If you can't make it, get the online streaming. Definitely a way to go for those who have to stay or can't make it to Florida or they'll stay at home. The online streaming, I think last year, if it's the same price, $35. I haven't seen this year if that's the same price or not, but you get that. And even if you're there, I think that's included in your ticket. But you're going to need that because there's 3 speakers in 3 different rooms at once. So even if you're there, you can't see all the speakers.
I'm bringing my dog down. I'm going to stay with my dog. It's a dog-friendly hotel, so can't go anywhere without my pup.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fun, and we're honored and privileged to be able to be there, let alone be speaking. So we're looking forward to that. And we are at the end of the show. Tomorrow, Stan Dale will be joining us, and we look forward to that as always. Until then, you guys stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Good night.
Have a great night.